Imagine for a moment that you're 25 years old, full of energy and plans, when one morning you wake up with your chest feeling heavier than usual. You brush it off, thinking maybe it's stress, maybe too much caffeine. But then the tightness returns. A subtle whisper at first, then a louder insistence that something isn't right. That was the day Stan Larkin's life changed forever. I want you to picture Stan as I knew him, tall, easygoing, with a grin that lit up every room. He loved to pick up basketball games at the local park and could talk for hours about his favorite sneakers. He was the kind of guy who never seemed to worry about the future. Kay arrived on his doorstep in the form of heart failure. Growing up, Stan and his younger brother Dominique were inseparable. They shared everything: video games, basketball jerseys, family jokes. But hidden beneath their playful bickering was a silent genetic hand that neither of them could see. It turned out that cardiomyopathy, a condition that weakens the heart muscle, ran in their family. For Dominique, the heart held on with medication and lifestyle changes. For Stan, it would take something far more radical. When Stan first learned that his heart was failing, it felt surreal. He was in his mid-20s. No one his age thinks about heart transplants. Yet there he was, sitting in a crisp white hospital room, his doctor explaining that without intervention, time was not on his side. You can imagine how surreal and frightening that must have felt. But if you know Stan, you know he doesn't panic. He listens, he asks questions, and then he plans his next move. Over the next few weeks, Stan underwent tests that probed every corner of his heart's function. He lay still inside MRI machines, hooked up to monitors that beeped with every heartbeat. Each test confirmed a stark truth. His heart's chambers were enlarged and weak, struggling to pump the life-sustaining blood his body needed. His ejection fraction had plummeted, a number that should have been low 3 digits but sat stubbornly below 20. In plain language, his heart was on its last legs. That is when his medical team at the University of Michigan, Frankel Cardiovascular Center, introduced him to a device that sounded like something from science fiction: a total artificial heart. Imagine a mechanical heart so sophisticated it could replace your natural one, pumping blood just as effectively. The specific model they recommended was the SynCardia, temporary total artificial heart. It would mean removing Stan's heart entirely and installing this machine in its place. It was a massive decision, more drastic than anything Stan had faced. But facing heart failure, he reasoned, he didn't have a choice. On a chilly November morning, Stan arrived at the hospital for what would become one of the most extraordinary surgeries of his life. He said later that walking down the corridor, he felt a strange kamaz. If he'd already accepted whatever came next. The operation itself was a marvel of precision and coordination. Surgeons removed both of Stan's failing ventricles, carefully attached the SynCardia inflow and outflow conduits, and settled the device into his chest cavity. When the artificial heart burst to life, pneumatic actuators hummed and lifted, mimicking the natural squeeze and release of a beating heart. After the surgery, Stan spent several days in the intensive care unit. Tethered to the hospital's massive Big Blue driver, this refrigerator-sized console powered the artificial heart with compressed air, keeping him stable. It was a surreal sight. Stan lying in bed, ventilator tubes in place, the rhythmic pulse of the mechanical heart echoing through the room. Yet amid the beeping machines, Stan stayed alert, cracked jokes with the nurses and asked about the basketball scores. Even when connected to the behemoth driver, his spirit felt unbroken. But as incredible as the hospital setup was, it also meant Stan couldn't leave. His world had shrunk to the confines of that room. He missed the fresh air, the feel of a basketball under his palm, the simple pleasure of walking down the street. Then came the day that truly changed everything. The day he was switched from the Big Blue console to the Freedom portable driver. Picture this. Instead of a hulking machine in a corner of the room, Stan now carried a sleek backpack. Inside rested the Freedom driver, a compact unit weighing roughly the same as a heavy textbook. It hummed softly, powering the artificial heart with every breath of compressed air. For the first time since his diagnosis, Stan could leave his hospital bed, could step outside, breathe deeply, and taste a bit of normal life again. The day he walked out of the hospital lobby, I remember seeing him pause by the glass doors, head tilted upward. He said it felt like stepping into a new world, one that he'd nearly forgotten existed. He carried the backpack with a confident grin, as if it were just another accessory. Over the following weeks, he developed a routine around his new companion. He learned how to change batteries without breaking stride, figured out the odd rhythm the pump made when it shifted on his back. He even found a way to tuck a water bottle into a side pocket so he could stay hydrated on long walks. Stan's liberation reached its first peak on a crisp afternoon when he joined a wheelchair basketball game at the park. His teammates knew about his condition, but they didn't treat him any differently. They passed him the ball, and Stan maneuvered with surprising agility. His artificial heart whooshed softly with each push of the wheel, a steady reminder that he was alive thanks to a machine. And yet to everyone watching, he looked like any other player, focused, determined, and utterly unshakable. Back home, he adapted quickly to the daily hum of the device. Sleeping came next to the most unusual lullaby, the constant drone of a mechanical pump. At first he'd wake when the sound shifted slightly, but soon he learned to drift off, cocooned by the rhythmic sigh. He rigged a padded spot on his pillow, ensuring that the tubes wouldn't snag or pull during the night. Morning showers were a careful choreography. He'd peel off the driver, drape it over a hook, and don a waterproof cover before stepping in. Within minutes, he'd emerge, reconnected and ready for the day. Strangest of all was how quickly the artificial heart became part of him. He spoke of it almost fondly, calling it his sidekick or backup plan. Friends joked that Stan's got two hearts now, one human and one superhero. He laughed with them, but beneath the humor lay gratitude. Every beat of that mechanical marvel was a gift of time he used to plan for the moment he'd receive a donor heart. Months passed, seasons turned. Stan kept a journal where he jotted down small victories. A 5-mile walk without stopping. A thrilling wheelchair race down a hill, the day his Freedom Pack battery lasted 6 hours straight. On tougher days when fatigue crept in, or his chest ached from the tubing, he reminded himself why he was doing this. He was writing a new chapter in his life story. He was waiting for a transplant, yes, but he wasn't just waiting. He was living. And live he did. He traveled to the lake with friends, roasted marshmallows by a fire pit, and even surprised his brother Dominique at a family barbecue. Watching the two of them together, you'd never guess they shared a secret struggle. They laughed, tossed a football, and reminisced about childhood pranks. Stan's mechanical heart thumped steadily beneath his shirt, powering every chuckle and hug. Deep down, though, Stan never lost sight of what lay ahead. He attended weekly appointments at the Frankel Cardiovascular Center, where his care team checked his device settings, ran imaging tests, and tweaked his medications. Each visit was a mix of routine and hope. There was routine in the blood draws and driver calibrations, and hope in the waiting list status that inched ever so slightly upward. One Saturday morning, Stan received the call. A suitable donor heart had been found. Words can hardly capture the swirl of emotions he felt. Elation, gratitude, relief, and a touch of fear all collided inside him. He packed his bag with the same calm determination he'd shown on surgery day and headed back to the hospital. This time he stepped into the operating room not as a man hanging by the threads of a machine, but as someone poised to reclaim the beating heart he'd lost. The transplant surgery was a mirror image of the one he'd undergone nearly 2 years earlier, but with a profoundly different ending in sight. Surgeons removed the artificial heart, carefully placed the donor organ, and reconnected it to Stan's vasculature. As the first warm pulse of his new heart flooded his vessels, Stan's body, used to the pneumatic rhythm, took a moment to adjust. Then finally, there it was. The sound of a natural heartbeat resonating within his chest. Recovery wasn't instant. He spent weeks in the ICU, adapting to immunosuppressive medications, and relearning what it felt like to have a living, beating heart of his own. Still, Stan's determination never wavered. He set milestones for himself, sitting up unassisted, taking his first steps, eating his first solid meal. With each small triumph, the hospital's sterile walls felt less like a prison and more like a bridge to a new life. When Stan finally walked out of the hospital, heart beating naturally, number backpack in sight, it felt like watching someone emerge from a cocoon. Friends and family cheered as he ascended the steps, leaning lightly on a cane but wearing the same bright smile I remembered from the basketball courts. He turned back, paused, and patted his chest, as if greeting an old friend. Then he stepped into the sunshine, ready to write the next chapter. Today's Stan's story is more than just a remarkable medical case. It's a testament to human resilience, to innovation born from necessity, to the power of hope sustained across 555 days. He taught us that even when life demands the most drastic measures, we can adapt, thrive, and laugh along the way. He reminded us that a heart, whether organic or mechanical, is at its best when it beats for something greater than itself, the possibility of tomorrow. So the next time you worry about the little things, remember Stan Larkin? Imagine carrying a mechanical sidekick in your backpack, a steadfast companion humming away as you play basketball or take a peaceful walk in the park. Imagine living half a lifetime of normalcy on borrowed time and then receiving the gift of a beating heart all your own. That's not science fiction. That's Stan's reality. And it all began with a simple, life-altering decision to trust in a machine capable of keeping him alive enough to keep dreaming, laughing, and loving the journey. Thanks for joining me, my friend. If you ever need a reminder that tomorrow is worth fighting for, think of Stan and his two hearts. And if you're hungry for more stories that push the boundaries of possibility, stay tuned because the world of medical miracles is only just beginning.